Welcome to the G Code, the podcast that you go to get the pretty to ugly and a grind to success. There's always a story to be told, and remember, everything that glitter ain't gold. So understand this. Remember, there is no need for the cheat code when you have the G Code. This episode of the G Code is brought to you by ADRI.V. It is a premium hair brought to you by the founder of BET. Quality you deserve at a price you will love. Backed by a 30-day money back guaranteed. You can visit ADRI.V at ZARIBEAUTY.com. Well, it's time for us to jump into the G Code. If you're ready for it, like to hear it, here it goes.
What's up, everybody? This your man Troy from the Capital Music Group, and you are now tuned in with your girl ADRI.V, the Go Getta, on the G Code.
Hey, what's up, my go-getters? It is me, ADRI.V, the Go Getta, and I am so excited to say welcome to another episode of the G Code. Well, more like the last episode for 2016. Now, I've been a bit slack with producing the G Code. Why? Because at some point I really felt like I was putting it out just to be consistent, but not allowing the content to be content that I wanted it to be. The G Code I take much pride in because I've created it in a time of my life where I was in search of information, search of motivation, and in search of encouragement, so that I decided to pretty much create what I was looking for, which hence became the G Code. In addition to that, as a radio personality for stations in Western New York, so that means Buffalo, New York, Rochester, New York, and Albany, New York, as a part-time personality, I wanted to create a full-time opportunity for myself and to create something for myself after hearing Damon Dash go on this rant on The Breakfast Club with Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God about them not owning their own. I wanted to make sure that if anything ever was to happen to me, if my PDs woke up the next morning and said, you know what, Adri, we have changed our mind about you, that I've created my own lane, owned my own thing, and developed it for myself, okay? And I not only developed it for myself and by myself, but I wanted it to be content that I've created for other go-getters who have this mindset that are always searching and yearning for new information, motivation, to be educated and to be connected and to hear from people who are either where they want to be, going to where they want to be, and also to hear those stories of how they got to where they are going. Because as I shared before, everything that glitter ain't gold, and so many times we get a glimpse of what someone has accomplished, not knowing what they had to go through to reach that accomplishment. And for me, that storyline, that information is more important than you actually reaching that goal. Because similar to the old adage of, I can either buy you fish, give you a whole fish, or I can teach you how to fish. And honestly, I don't want nobody giving me just anything. I want you to be able to show me how to get it so that if I happen to lose it along the way, I can get it again. So I kind of kicked off this podcast with dropping some very interesting things on you. But the focus, of course, of this G Code, as we give you the G Code and not the cheat code, so why get it when we got it for you, it's all about this. Do not go into this new year saying it is a new me. Do not go into this new year creating a new year resolution. Do not go into this new year saying I'm leaving all of these things in 2016 and I'm kickstarting and going into 2017 a fresh new woman or a new man. Simply because, listen, baby, you will be right back where you are when it comes to 2016. Similar to people who decide to up and leave and up and root a location because they felt like there is no opportunities, or that, that life being there is miserable, or, this is what they do here. All they do is, hey, I need to go somewhere else. Well, I'm sorry to break the news to you. I'm sorry to give it to you like this, but no matter where you go, who you decide to connect to, you are not leaving you. Yes, that is the focus of this podcast. You, my dear, are not leaving you. You, sir, are not leaving you. So the focus here is all about you. Yes, you. Round of applause, please. Give them the you. Because, we decide to create our vision boards. We decide to write our goals. We decide to make posts all day long about wanting to be out of 2016. Oh my gosh, it was such a horrible year. Oh my gosh, I'm just so sick of it. And I'm sick of seeing these stats simply because this is my thing. What happened to you in 2016 happened for you, and it's necessary that you begin to embrace all of the good, all of the bad, all of the indifferent, because it's preparing you for your next year. Because if the same things come around, you're going to know how to combat them. If the same scenario happened, you can know and have learned how to go around it or to figure out the difference. But my thing is this: if you're so quickly to try to jump out of something versus figure out, what did I learn in this year? What did I learn in this moment? And what did I learn about me? You will continue to take you into the year 2017. So let's just focus on you a bit. Okay? Because I had to decide to focus on me. Now, about 2 years ago, I went through some tragic situations to where my marriage was on the rocks, pretty much breaking down. My mother was going through health issues, facing cancer, breast cancer, having to go with her back and forth to chemotherapy and radiation, and trying to deal with my own issues, being let go from a job because they changed their mind about me, not being able to keep it together emotionally, trying to blame my past for my current issues, my father not being in my life, my grandfather dying on my wedding day. Man, I have had everything and so many things happen to me to where it's just like, oh my goodness, what will happen next, right? And so when things were happening, and when I was getting my marriage back into a certain place and building relationships with people again and deciding to trust again, because boy, oh boy, when certain things occur, you begin to look at the road around you as public enemy number one. And I know that was definitely me at some point. But I had to sit down and talk to me. I had to sit down and look at me and figure out what was I bringing to the table? How was I perceiving myself or looking at myself, and what was my thought process when it comes to who I am, and what I'm doing. We get so caught up. And I know for me as a go-getter, and that's what the name that was given to me, that's my brand, and that's what I'm all about, going to get it, chasing your dreams, being all that you can be, learning and applying the information that's given, that sometimes you could believe your own hype. Yes, you can certainly believe your own hype, that you're a go-getter and you can't break down, that you're a go-getter and you got to keep going, that you're a go-getter and you just cannot stop. You got to just keep going and get it. And all that is fine and dandy, but all that is so true. But the focus is, if you do not tend to you, and if you don't decide to go get you, how can you go get anything? Tell me. So as this podcast is all about the focus of you, what you have to do is really sit down and analyze yourself. What am I bringing into 2017? What am I deciding to leave in 2016? And I'm not talking about people, places, or things. I'm talking about you. Are you going to leave the anxiety attacks that you would get all the time? How are you dealing with the anxiety? Are you going to leave your insecurities that you have? How are you facing your insecurities? How are you dealing with the demons, people like to say, that you fight and struggle within, of downplaying yourself and pretty much telling yourself that you can't do something? What are you doing to face the reality of your circumstances and situation to put yourself in the best place possible mentally? Because so many people don't realize that mental illness is true. It's true within millennials. It's true within teenagers. It's true within our elders. And so many times I can say within the African American community, we don't really deal with mental health. And it is a true issue. And most of the time, mental health is the focus of a person and how they perceive themselves and how they are dealing with their own issues inside. So for 2017, as we walk into this new year, I want to charge you up. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the go-getter essentials. Definitely going to talk to you about that. But one go-getter essential that I have learned that you have to have in your bag, and I'm not just talking about the dope bag that you carry around or backpack, whatever it is, but in your bag is mastering you. Being able to deal with you, being able to face you, being able to ensure that you are allowing you to be in the best place possible. How many times have you took yourself on a date? It's normal. How many times have you sat down and did a SWOT analysis on yourself, trying to figure out your strength, your weaknesses, your threats, your assets, all of that, your opportunities? How many times have you really just said, okay, if I move to Atlanta, which is a booming place, a popping place, and I get there and I'm still not booming and popping and I'm still have myself in the same financial situation, in the same unemployment situation as I did when I was living in my hometown, i.e. Buffalo, because that's where I'm from. The problem is not your location. The problem is yourself. What if I decide to go to another job and all I kept complaining about was my job previously, my coworkers this and my supervisors that, and I had to have so many write-ups and so many issues. And you get to that new opportunity, starting clean, nobody knows you, don't know your history, and you still encounter the same issue? The issue is never the people around you. The issue is yourself. So here's my encouragement, and what is it I suggest that you do to face you going into 2016? We can make these grand goals of achieving this opportunity and writing this book and losing weight and all of these great things. But the bottom line, the common denominator is you. Because if you don't have yourself in order mentally, spiritually, internally, how do you feel that achieving these great things will even happen? Because I'm speaking to myself. So many years, I look back at some of my notebooks and I've realized I have written, gotta lose this weight. Still got that weight. I need you to get this opportunity. Some of them opportunities were achieved, but the greater ones that I really desired, I didn't have them. Get out of debt. Well, most of the debt, some of the debt is still there. Why? Because I didn't condition myself to really face myself. Adri, you like to shop. Regardless if you say, I only shop and I only get things that's on sale, I always getting a deal. Well, baby, if you continuously spending money on sale after sale, guess what? You are spending money. You have a problem. You talk about losing this weight, but guess what? Baby, you like to drink Red Bull. You like to eat out. You like pasta. You love bread. And I really had to have that conversation with self. I said self, myself said, girl, you need to get it together. So this is what I want to help you with for 2017. First and foremost, numero uno, number one. I need you to do a SWOT analysis on yourself. I talked about it just a moment ago. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? I'm talking about within your own self, not externally. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What makes you weak? I get so weak in the knees. You heard the song. I can't sing for nothing. But what are they? What opportunities have you created for yourself? What opportunities do you perceive to see for yourself in the future? If you get yourself in order, then what are your threats? The threats can be a redundancy in a cycle of being in the same kind of relationship over and over, beating up on yourself over and over. I remember I would get so down on myself to where I would kind of paralyze myself. I would be doing good, working out, and the next thing you know, something will happen, and now I'm eating nonstop. And after doing the SWOT analysis on myself, I realized, Adriana, you're an emotional eater. Something happens, comfort comes from the food. Or you're an emotional spender. Something happens, comfort comes from shopping. And baby, even after I got done shopping and in that moment that purchase seemed so great, by the time I got home and those bags was at my door, I was feeling so much remorse. So then I realized I'm a remorseful shopper. It didn't fix anything. Those things didn't fix anything. Me eating didn't fix anything. No, it just made me fatter and it made me broker. Yep. So numero uno, number one, do a SWOT analysis on yourself. Figure out your strengths, your weakness, your opportunities, and your threats. That is so important. Because just like business, so many times we are so quick to want to build a business, call myself a boss, and, start a company. But when starting a company, and shout out to all my folks who went to business school, got their MBA, and, really had to sit and do their capstone or thesis and create a business plan. And making a business plan, it's not just made in a day, not just made in a week. You have to do serious research when creating a business plan. And I've realized so many times we put more effort, more work into building a business than to being in the business of building myself. Ooh, that's good. Let me snap that one. Being in the business of building myself. Have I done a business plan on myself? What is my financial statements? Okay. What are my projections? What are my SWOT analysis? So this is why it's so important that you begin to look at yourself, and really dig deep inside yourself, and not only build your business around you, because a lot of us are go-getters or being entrepreneurs, and this is one of the biggest times where people are really stepping out and becoming entrepreneurs. And shout out to all my Black women, because we are the fastest growing entrepreneurs out there. We need to get not only into the business of building our businesses, but get into the business of building ourselves. Do your SWOT analysis. Number one. Secondly, find yourself a support group, a counselor, or a therapist. Why? Because so many times we're having mental conversations with ourselves. So many times we're having conversations within ourselves that honestly, you talking to yourself is not helping you. This is why you are where you are in this moment. There's nothing wrong with getting a counselor. There's nothing wrong with getting a therapist. These, especially a clinical one, because these people are groomed, they went to school, and they are trained to deal with any kind of thing that you're talking about. They can help you look at it from a different perspective, give you their perspective, help you break it down, help you to analyze it. Adri, ask me, how do I know? Adri, how do you know? Because I have a counselor. I realized the death of my grandfather dying on my wedding day was catastrophic. My grandfather was like he was a father figure for me. I didn't grow with my father in my life. Him and my mother divorced when I was little. After him, they divorcing, he was already using drugs. So this is one of the reasons why they divorced. And on top of that, my house caught on fire. But in addition to that, he began to use drugs until to this day still, he is out here on drugs. That affected me. The man that taught me so much, that, was there for me thick and thin, whipped me, chastised me, taught me how to be an entrepreneur, showed me by example, loved on me. He got cancer and became extremely ill just a week before the wedding, and he was supposed to walk me down the aisle. And unfortunately, he didn't have enough strength to walk me down the aisle. And, it was very hard to go through that time. And on top of that, I was in school getting my MBA. And it was just a very stressful time, trying to get married, little to no money. And on my wedding day, I remember stopping by to see him before the reception, and seeing him and knowing in my heart that this may be the last time I see my grandfather. And I remember the reception winding down. I was completely on cloud 9, just loving every bit of this day. Like, it was just perfect in my eyes, perfect in my sight, just on cloud 9. And as the reception was winding down, I just remember even getting a drink, and I barely drink, and that drink was so good. That bartender really hooked me up. I remember seeing my uncle walk by me, like, mustering up tears, and I asked him what was wrong, because I was, talking to one of my guests that was leaving the reception, and he said, in like such a scary looking voice, and my uncle's not a big crier, and he said, "Grandad died." And I just remember trying to really get this wonderful tasting glass of liquor to the table before I collapsed, because I just couldn't feel my feet under me anymore, and the wind was knocked out of me. And I just remember waking up to my husband throwing me over his shoulders, and us immediately rushing to the house and coming to the side of my grandfather as I walked barefoot, not knowing where my shoes were at all, and laying on the side of his lifeless body in my wedding dress, crying my eyelashes off. And that being the last time my family came together as a whole. And of course, when things happen, death happen, money involved, family goes which way, whatever. But for the longest, I struggled with that. I struggled with, was this an omen? Did he die on my wedding day because maybe I'm not supposed to be married? Did he, what was this all about? I became extremely angry with God. I was so mad with God. I was just angry that I became an emotional wreck. I couldn't even tend to my new husband at that time. Going on a honeymoon, I was just lifeless. I was just paralyzed with the death of the man that raised me, and the man who was not only my grandfather, but also was my father figure. And it all happened on my wedding day. That was catastrophic. On top of that, after, having to deal with losing a job, having an internship, not making the money I wanted to, finishing grad school, having issues in my marriage, back-to-back issues that as women, or even as people, we don't really face our issues as much as we should. We try to subside them. And press them, not so much subside them. We try to press them and push them to the side and not really face them. And for a long time, I never really faced it. You talk to your pastor, or you talk to the different ministers and women of God, and they all mean well, and they would tell you, you got to pray about it, give it to the Lord. But after you pray and you give it to God, and you just be like, I still feel horrible, people. I still feel this thing. I'm still angry. At some point you have to seek help, because I'm a firm believer in that God created these people and that he gave them the ability to have such opportunities to teach you and work with you. Why not get it? Like a doctor. That'd be foolish to say, oh my gosh, I have stage whatever cancer and I'm going to heal this myself with God. But God is like, look, boo-boo, I sent you a boat. Get on that boat and don't drown. Go get your help. So I finally decided to get my help, and it has been one of the best journeys of my life. So many people are afraid to go get help. I don't want to tell nobody my business. Well, baby, you need to get into the business of building you. And stop running to Facebook and social media and some of your friends who got issues too, and they really cannot help you and guide you in the process of you building you. So second, as I shared before, get a support group with other people who are dealing with the same thing, and someone who can really guide you guys and be of support with you. Get a counselor or a therapist, somebody that can certainly guide you through and help you to develop. Is there a timeline on having these people? No. But if you are in the process of progressing, which I love because this was all about, why not continue to go to it? And there's so many different agencies out here that can certainly help you to subside the actual cost of it, because it can be very expensive. All right. So when it comes to focus on you, one, I talked about doing a SWOT analysis on yourself. Second, having a support group, counselor, or therapist to help you walk through some of your things. And this is just a tip. One of my good friends recently lost so much weight. Like, she lost 85 pounds and she looks phenomenal. She looks gorgeous. She's a single parent mother to a special needs kid. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, boo, what was your journey? Because so many people, struggle with weight loss. I have struggled myself. And I asked her questions. She said, I had to get very disciplined with myself. I had to create a strict regimen, because she was also in grad school as well and dealing with her son, as I said, who has special needs. And she said something that was very profound. She said, I had to get a therapist to help me deal with my demons. And the light bulb went off. I already was in counseling, and it was so refreshing to hear another person say that, because as I talked about it before, when you're dealing with issues, sometimes we will revert to one, just trying to press them, not really discuss it, not really allow ourselves to face them. We will try to eat it off, out here gaining weight because you're an emotional eater. We will spend it off, out here buying different items, thinking these items will make me feel better. Or as I think about my girl Solange, and I love her songs, I try to sex it away. This is why some women become very promiscuous, or even men as well, because we think doing these activities will help me become better or make me feel better. But deep down inside, it's not doing anything for you. So why not face the issues? And when she said, I decided to get a therapist to face my demons, I knew exactly what she was saying. And I was so proud of her in that moment for deciding to face herself in such a way. All right, so we talked about SWOT analysis, talked about getting a counselor. Secondly, so many people do this, but I don't really think they understand how therapeutic it is. And as I think back, and I'm so mad at myself because I used to have tons of diaries, right? And I would really start off saying, Dear Diary. I have to laugh at myself because I really was saying Dear Diary. But I think about when I found my diaries and my sister, or the little devilish child, she took my room after I left to go to college and of course moved down. It was a bigger room. She was all up in my stuff, right? And she found my diaries. Man, I'm so mad I threw them out. And because I think about when I had a chance to kind of reread and go through my diaries and see what I had in there, I was an angry child, my father not being in my life. I was just crazy. I was cussing left and right, talking about all kinds of vulgar things, just being a nut job. But I'm mad at myself because that just was my thought process in that moment. I wasn't a nut job. I was just expressing myself the best way I could without anyone hindering me from saying what it is I wanted to say, even though I was not spelling this stuff correctly. I laugh at myself as I think about these journal entries. But I encourage you, as you get into the business of you, to get yourself a journal, a diary, whatever you want to call it, man or woman, get a journal. If you're whatever, it gives you a chance to really express yourself. It's so therapeutic. As I look back over my entries during the times that I was struggling, during the times of dealing with so many different issues, I look back and I realized the place I was in. It was dark. You could read that stuff and just be like, girl, you going through. Or I would look at some of my recent entries as I'm really rebuilding and refocusing, getting my marriage in order, getting my life in order, focusing back on me, of how light and colorful the wordplay is. And it's refreshing to look back at that because you can see, where and how you allowed yourself to get to that place. You can see where you have progressed, because that's important to see and to know. And you can also learn exactly how you got to where you are now. So journaling is so therapeutic. Maybe you're not interested in getting a counselor or getting a therapist or going to a support group, but journaling is another way for you to be able to express yourself, say it with your chest, get it off your chest, and leave it in the notebook. Now, i.e., make sure, not even i.e., here's the tip. Put this notebook somewhere where you can only find it, where you can focus on ensuring that your thoughts are your thoughts and that no one else would come into your private thoughts and read what you're writing, right? I remember taking my journal one time to my counselor and allowing them to just sit and read it, and they came back and analyzed me. It's like, Adri, in this moment you're this, and in this moment you were that, and I was just like, thank you, because I knew I was feeling all of that, which is very, very important. So I say definitely get a journal. And also, for me, I recently started, not even recently, about a year or two ago, I started a prayer notebook where I would write my prayers in them. And that too is amazing because as I look back at my prayer notebook, some prayers didn't happen immediately. Some prayers didn't happen the way I wanted it to. But it's so awesome to see that regardless of when it happened or how it happened, it still happened. So it made me have a refreshing of my relationship with God, because in the beginning, for a while I was very mad at him, as I shared with you before, that he still hears me no matter what. He hears my prayers, he hears my cries, and that he is my father still, and that the things that have happened to me happened for me, and that he will never leave me or forsake me. Oh Lord, I'm about to go into a praise. And so that was very refreshing for me in my pursuit of discovering me and also allowing myself to get spiritually connected again and rooted in him. So that is definitely great if that is something you're into, your particular religion, whatever it may be. I say create a notebook to where you're speaking to your higher power, which I hope is Jesus Christ. And if it's not, hey, still love you anyway. So 1, I gave you a SWOT analysis. 2, I suggested that you definitely get a counselor, therapist, or a support group that will help you along the way of breaking down your thoughts and issues that you are dealing with, or in the words of my homegirl, your interpersonal demons. 3rd, get a journal. Yes, a journal is so awesome. So awesome. Fourth, as we talk about the business of you and focusing on you, I want you to discover what makes you happy. So many times we get into these mundane routines where we're just working and just grinding. I used to be like that. I'm grinding, working, and I look up and it's like somebody asked me a question and it took me forever to try to answer it. I said, Adri, what do you do for fun? And I sat there and I just was like, dang, what do I do for fun? And all I could say was like, work. Like I deep down in myself, like I love what I do. I love to get paid to talk. I did it all my life. I did it in grammar school and I got in trouble for it. I will always be the one kid raising her hand, wishing the teacher would call on me after I'd been called on several times and getting mad because she wouldn't call on me because she wanted somebody else to have an opportunity. And I'm just like, well, if they don't want to raise their hand, they don't want to talk, why are you trying to keep me from having my opportunity to do so? Or being in class and having a teacher move me from my friends because I was talking, but she didn't understand that I'm a talker. I will talk to a stranger. I will talk to everybody. And so therefore I just became very destructive in some classrooms. But I really want you to dig deep and figure out what tickles your fancy. I say that often. What tickles your fancy? What makes you excited? What makes you happy? And really, what gets you excited? So I had to dig deep and I had to get back into that routine of doing things that make me excited beyond just building my brand and my business and talking to people and doing radio shows and speaking engagements and motivating people. Those are all things that I do that happen to become a part of my career path. But what do I do outside of that? And I had to rediscover myself again. I love sports. I played basketball. I love that. I love playing flag football. I've been a skater all my life. Every birthday party I had, since I was probably able to skate, I had at a skating rink. Big shout out to Skateland, which has a new name now. So I had to get back into deciding to want to go skating, doing different activities that were different, especially when it comes to the arts, going to paint parties and being able to express my artistic abilities. Because when I was in high school, I was an advertising art major. We did Photoshop and we drew and we painted, and that was another release. So you have to find releases that makes you excited to really engage back the kid again in you, to really engage back the excitement in you, and to really help build you from the inside out, and allow how you feel and what you love internally to be expressed outwardly so that people can see your smile and see that you're really engaging and laughing. And that is so important. And so once I was able to discover that was I think the icing on the cake that really helped me along the way. So in addition, as I gave you the focuses of focusing on you and getting back to you in the business of you, which is just like building a business, doing a SWOT analysis on yourself, getting a support group, a counselor, or a therapist, having a journal, an outlet where you can actually write about your issues or things that you're dealing with, and being able to kind of engage yourself after the fact. And secondly, fourth, finding the things that you love. These are, I would say, the key essentials that I would really feel you need to focus in on as you move into 2017. Because if you don't get into the business of focusing on yourself and really deciding who you are and what you decide and what you want to do, it would be hard for you to implement those things when you are your own blockage. There is a scripture in the Bible that says, whatsoever a man thinketh in his heart that he is. I completely butchered that, but it's really just that simple. Whatever you think in your heart, you are, and whatever you believe you are, you are. And I always say there's a difference between a man who says he can and a difference between a man who says he can't. There is no difference, because if you say you can, you can. If you say you can't, you can't. If you say who you are, you are. So you have to decide to begin to change the portrait of how you see yourself. Especially when it comes to even losing weight. Can't see yourself as being fat. You can't see yourself as being depressed. You can't see yourself as being broke. You have to begin to see yourself how you want to see yourself. You get it? Yeah, I hope you do. I was recently reading a book And I'm going to share the book a little bit later. But it said this that really struck a chord. It said, we live who we believe we are. That is good. That is so good. We live who we believe we are. And for a long time, ADRI, I've always believed I was a go-getter. I've been going and getting it since I've been knowing I could. But I was having conflicting thoughts along with believing that I am a go-getter. I was believing that I was depressed. I was believing that I was broke. I was believing that I was fat. I was believing that I just couldn't trust anybody anymore. I was believing so many things that I allowed myself to develop as that person, you know? And so I really decided to look at myself and to see how I was looking at myself and deciding to change that perspective. Okay? So I really want you to grasp that we live who we believe we are. Is on today, which is, this is a long podcast, as I can't believe I just talked my own little self out this joint. Normally this podcast is this long when I'm talking with other people, but apparently I had to say a lot to get off my chest. But moving into 2017, I want you to live who you believe you are, but allowing these thoughts to be good thoughts towards yourself. Thoughts of, something about to be reaching really back into the Bible. You know, thoughts of really reaching your goals, thoughts that are good and not evil, and that will bring you to an expected end. And shout out to God on that one. But honestly, facing yourself and looking yourself in the mirror and saying that you can, looking yourself in the mirror and saying who you are and whose you are, and looking yourself in the mirror and knowing that it is capable. And in 2017, you will bring in a better you. You will get into the business of building you alongside of building your businesses and the organizations we work for, the children that you have, and the people that you're connected to, and so many other things that we find ourselves doing besides we do ourselves first. Do yourself first, honey. Just do it. So I encourage you to, not only implement the 4 things I suggested, but also allow some other essentials to be purchased along the way. Getting yourself a planner, creating yourself a daily and nightly routine, making sure that you get yourself proper sleep alongside of exercise, and really deciding that you're going to focus on you in addition to the other goals that you have. But putting you first is your true business, I will say. Putting you first is your first business. And everything else will fall into place. Why? Because once you are in position and in place, you can execute everything else how you decide to execute. Well, my go-getters, this surely wraps up, I'll say, a bit of my testimony, a bit of my story, and I really hope that it has encouraged you to decide to position yourself to get into the business of building you, in addition to allowing yourself to catapult nothing but greatness into 2017 and allowing things to fall into place how you see them, especially once you're able to first handle yourself. Because just like when you're on an airplane and they say that you need to put your mask on first before helping anybody else, listen, take off the mask that you're putting on for everybody else to say that you're okay, and put the mask on for yourself to show that you need to focus on you and get yourself to a place where you know you can be. I love you so much for checking in and listening. I will be back again on next year. How crazy is that? And I promise my goal for 2016 is to become consistent again. 2017 is to be consistent with producing nothing but dope content, bringing you nothing but dope go-getters and people who's going to give you the real, I will say the pretty, the ugly, and the grind to their success, allowing them to show you their glitz and glam, but also to give you the grind of all that they have had to achieve along the way. So I hope you are strapped up and ready to get going, because this is definitely going to be a happy go-getting year. Getting yourself in order and also getting your affairs too. I love you so much for listening, and always, again, welcome to the G Code. Be sure to subscribe to the G Code. Find it on iTunes. Also, download ADRI.V, the Go Getta app on your Google Play or in your iTunes App Store for free, and always have the G Code at your fingertips on a daily. Want to catch up on some of the G Codes as well? Go to www.adrivthegogetta.com and also subscribe on SoundCloud and YouTube. And remember, you can check a new episode out each and every Wednesday as we get you over the hump with the G Code.
I was born in the G Code, embedded in my blood.
Matter of fact, you just triggered a level orange G-code security threat.